My name is Greg Amerson. I guess I should introduce you first. And I've been working at Liferay for over 7 years. When I came into Liferay had no Eclipse plugin to support Liferay development, and so we built one. And I had some great coworkers help me build that. They're still, we still build Dev Studio today. But the last few years, I've been working more with Dave Trong and the product team to build more developer tools that are more bite-sized and easy to consume, smaller command line, more Gradle and Maven plugins, the Blade CLI tool. And actually, here at DEVCON, I didn't add a slide, but we've actually, next week, we're going to release our first IntelliJ plugin for Liferay. So any of you guys use IntelliJ or have coworkers that use IntelliJ, come see me. I'll share with you a link. We're going to make a public announcement next week, but it is available online, and I can send you the URL. Here's the community chat for our upgrade today, our upgrade workshop. So be sure and join that. We might have to share a link. You may want to ask a question with other people. So upgrades, they're really hard at Liferay. If anyone's been around at Liferay for any period of time and you've worked with the real projects, you know how difficult upgrades are. And there's many reasons for that. Some of them are real reasons that, well, sometimes we use them as a crutch or an excuse. But honestly, it's something that we have not paid enough attention to, and our community has suffered through those upgrade experiences. Why are upgrades hard? Well, it's because the APIs change. We rapidly evolve our APIs. If you follow the Liferay repository for any period of time, we are regularly flagged by GitHub as committing a distributed denial of service attack, and all we're doing is pushing commits. We add so much code to GitHub. We're not on GitHub's Christmas list because we have so many commits. We push so much code. We change a lot. The code moves very fast. So APIs get churned up in that, and you guys have all experienced that. Architectures change. The way you extended and built plugins for Liferay 4 is quite a bit different than it was Liferay 5. It changed again in Liferay 6. And in one manner of speaking, it has changed even greater in Liferay 7. Not necessarily. One of the messages that we inadvertently pushed out there for Liferay 7 is that the whole world has changed. You have to completely build your plugins, modules in a different way. That's not actually true. Everything that you used to do in 6x, 6.2 is still supported in 7 with a few not so minor exceptions. And we've covered those in previous talks. Custom JSP hooks, some of these things, there is no analog. I mean, there is an analog, but your code won't just deploy. In most cases, if you can run your code through the upgrade tool to help get it to compile on 7, it will just deploy as a normal WAR, normal old school legacy portlet. You don't have to move everything to being modular. You don't have to move everything to being OSGi, contrary to what you may have heard. In some of our exuberance for this new platform that we're moving to, we may have inadvertently, no, we did, not may. We inadvertently communicated that everyone must modularize, everyone must convert to full OSGi modules all the way down. That's not true. Actually, we've bent over backwards to maintain a compatibility layer for your WAR-based plugins. They should just work, Spring MVC, JSF, for the most case. There are corner cases, of course. Custom JSP hooks have to be handled differently now through OSGi fragments and whatnot, but we've tried to document those cases. We've tried to outline kind of what's inbounds and out of bounds. Okay, I think this one is ready. Is that everything? Yeah.
Guys, who else needs the... This stick we have the installers. There's two USB sticks, one with user home and the other one with the installers. Who needs the installers? Okay.
The good news is that the installers, the portion for the installer is not needed until maybe a few minutes into. So we can actually start the upgrade process as long as everyone has the Git repo, devcon-workspace.zip. That's the one you need, and user home. You need user home and the devcon workspace. If you get these two, we can begin. The installer comes later. So concentrate on getting those two first. Okay, so back to why upgrades are hard. APIs change, architectures change, and then also, yeah. Also, best practices change. And so I know it's been difficult for you all to gauge what is a new best practice that I should adopt versus stick with what my team knows and loves. Well, maybe love is strong, but knows anyway. I hope through the workshop today that you can see the various places that you can decide, okay, so back to why upgrades are hard. APIs change. You must move to the new API. You have no choice on this. And we have, we're going to show some tooling today that helps you do that. Architecture also has changed, but that doesn't mean you need to change your architecture. We would like to show you a path to modularizing your code, modularizing your portlets for Liferay. It's optional, but it is recommended. We're going to show that today. We're going to take a 6.2 plugins SDK style portlet, and we're going to modularize it, split it into 3 parts. This is what we recommend. Once again, it's not required. The old way you deploy works fine. In DXP itself, if you open it up, there's many traditional war files in there. We still do it ourselves. If you open up an LPKG file, there's wars in there. So wars are absolutely still supported in the way you've always done them. However, we are recommending that you, for those service builder portlets especially, those would benefit from modularization, and we have tooling to support that. Now, the last part is the best practice, and you may say, I want to follow what Liferay is doing. I've seen their code. I've followed their own modularization. I see how their modules and components all the way down using the best that OSGi has to offer, and I want to do that. We certainly will support you in that, certainly have documentation and training that will show you that, but it is not required. Absolutely, if you have a team that is built on building portlets, using web apps, using servlets, you can continue to do that. You don't have to convert everything to OSGi components. We don't want to communicate that. So we're not even going to be showing that today. The workshop is going to just upgrade the APIs, then we're going to modularize the code, but we're not going to push it all to OSGi. Actually, we won't be showing any OSGi today. It's all going to be just code that you would recognize. But we will be adding some new testing support that we've added in Liferay Workspace. And that's part of the reason why you want to modularize, so that it's easier to test. So that you split up your monolithic portlet where it has the API, the service, and the UI into API as one module, service as another module, and then your front end or your portlet, your JSPs in a third. And then you can test them accordingly. Okay, here's another installer, Dave. Thank you. So we can make upgrading easier. This is our goal. So the last 3 years we've been rebuilding the platform that Liferay applications are built on top of, OSGi framework, and the goal there is so that we can have a more stable target platform, so the world is not always shifting. And also it forces us as a Liferay engineering staff to be more disciplined in the code that we produce, the APIs that we're producing. We have implemented at a very foundational level semantic versioning. So if you watch the portal source code, you'll see that every day there's commits or there's pull requests that are rejected because semantic versioning is broken. That means we have broken an API that's going to make all of your code fail to compile, and Brian Chan will nix the pull request. And it goes back to the developer and says, do I really need to make a breaking change? And 99.9% of the time, they do not need a breaking change. They can do it with existing APIs, or they can just extend existing APIs in a backwards compatible way. And we've done that over and over and over. When we started this process, we started out with kernel version 1.0, and then one time we had to break it But since then, we've been on 2.x.x, and we've not broken that in 2.5 years of development. So semantic versioning is really helping us build a better platform, so upgrades will be easier as far as the code is concerned. Databases, well, there's a reason why I'm not showing database workshop today. So then the last part is the upgrade tooling. We have never in the past built specific tooling for upgrades. We're doing a lot of that now, and going forward, it's going to be a standard practice we're going to do the best we can to not break your apps from 7.0 to 7.1. But in those cases where we do, to move the platform forward, we're going to build upgrade tooling that's going to do that for you. It's going to help you upgrade, and we're going to be showing some of that today. And and when you try what you see today on your own code, it's likely going to not catch everything. Actually, I know it won't catch everything. Even in the code we upgrade today, the tool only gets us so far. We still have to manually do some things together. So that means in your code, you're going to be a lot of things you need to do. But all of us, we're friends now. We've shared the same space, breathed the same air. So you can send me your projects. You can send me your code. Say, yeah, your tool is nice. This is great. But I ran my code, and it turned into soup. So help me. And so you send me your code. Send me your 6.2 projects. Our team will run it through our code upgrade tool, and we will get better by using your input. And so we're willing to do that. So here's a list of some tooling that we built just for upgrades. We have a database upgrade client, which you may have gone to other talks about that, seen that. Maybe you've seen a webinar or something online about it. We have a new tool we'll be showing today that's not yet released. It will be released next week, and that's actually a properties locator. So you point this tool to your portal ext.properties file, and it will show you where you're using properties that have now been modularized, and now they need to go in a different spot. We have lots of documentation that covers this, kind of a Rosetta Stone. Here's the old property, here's the new property. But as you guys have looked at that file, there's thousands and thousands of properties. We have a tool that will scan that and catch it. Right now, it's only a reporting tool. We have plans for it to be also something that can auto fix. We've built a lot of Gradle plugins that actually help support the upgrade, and we're going to be showing some of that today. Most of our upgrade tooling is in Gradle and Blade CLI and the IDE. We don't have everything available for Maven yet. So the workspace that I'm going to be showing is available for Maven. In today's workshop, we're going to be using Gradle. Also, we have the code upgrade tool that I'll be showing in Liferay IDE and Developer Studio. We also have a tool that will help you convert your projects from a single 6.2 service builder style portlet, just a single portlet project, to the modular approach, API service and portlet. Yes, so the code upgrade tool will also support Maven. So if you have a Maven project structure that's using the 6.2 plugins, you can point the tool to that, and it will scan your POMs and upgrade migrate your POMs to the new plugins. But it doesn't modularize. It doesn't convert to Gradle, no. It leaves it in Maven. And also, it does not yet modularize the code, so it doesn't take a single Maven portlet project and split it up into 3. We have plans to do that. Right now, that code only works for Gradle, but we're going to certainly add support for Maven. So that's a good question. A lot of that depends on your team and its expertise. So my recommendation would be, if you're using Ant, if you're using the plugins SDK, then my recommendation would be yes, upgrade to Gradle. If you're using Maven and your team has experience with that, I would stay on Maven. I don't think the benefits of moving to Gradle would. If you're using plugins SDK, yes, move to Gradle, move to Liferay Workspace. If you're using Maven, I think you can still remain productive in the current architecture. So what we're going to do today, how are we doing on the files? Are we still getting there? Almost? Okay, we'll begin soon. Yes, so in the Slack chat, I posted it. Yep, no problem. So it's there. So what's in the GitHub repo, what's in the Git repo is just a 6.2 Liferay Plugins SDK that has one project, the task portlet. It's one of our own internal plugins that we did not migrate to DXP. So it's still sitting there in its old form. And so I just wanted to use that as an example project to upgrade to DXP. And let's look at what that process looks like together. And then the goal, so we're going to first, to do that, starting from the foundation of a plugins SDK and a Liferay portal 6.2, we're going to first create a DXP workspace using Blade init. Question? Good question. Here. So community-chat.liferay.com and then the workshop upgrade channel. So we're first going to create a DXP workspace together, and then we're going to set that up. So we're going to prepare our development environment for upgrading to DXP, and then we're going to look at the properties that need to be upgraded from our old environment. So inside that workspace that is going around, there is a plugins SDK, there's a Liferay portal, and inside Liferay portal, there's a portal ext.properties that everybody has with their settings. So I've already placed in there an example portal properties that might look very much like some of them that you have, and we're going to show what upgrading that looks like. So we're going to create the workspace, we're going to upgrade our properties, then we're going to upgrade the plugins SDK portlet itself. Then we're going to modularize it into 3 modules. And then, time permitting, we're going to write some integration tests and some functional tests. This is the payoff I hope we can get to. Like, why do I want to upgrade to Workspace? Why do I not just leave it in plugins SDK or in Maven? One of the reasons to do that is to take advantage of some of the new test integration plugins that we've built that actually will start and bootstrap the portal, instrument the portal for testing, and then run your integration tests. And it's very seamless and requires very little configuration on your part. So that's one of the reasons that why you would want to pay for the upgrade cost of moving to Liferay Workspace. So actually, this is a very small font, but we're not going to. I'm going to give everyone a copy of this PDF, and it's going to have all of the steps that I'm doing today. So everything I'm doing, every click, every command, I have recorded in the slides. So if you're trying to follow along, I hope many of you can. If you can't follow along, don't fear. Everything that I'm doing, you can reproduce at home. I want to give a few more minutes so that we can hopefully have everyone can follow along. Where are we at on that? You don't need to clone it. Just unzip the devcon-workspace.zip. Don't need to clone it because it's quite big. It's 1.5 gigs. So, so just unzip the thing that's on there. Sorry, I should have made that clear. Yeah. What was the question? Oh, right. You mean turn it down? So I don't know if I can go any lower than that. Yes, how do I do that?
Guys, who else needs the installers? Who else? Who has the USB stick with installers? And pass through the other guys?
I want to make this as small as I can, but still have everyone in the back read it. Can you still read it? Can you read it? Good? Okay. Okay, let's begin. Unless anyone objects. If someone's really close to getting it set up, we can wait. I need my cheat sheet here. There we go. Okay, so what's in the workspace.zip is, like I said before, a Liferay plugins SDK and a portal. And so just to show you that this is working code, you can go into the task portlet and you can build a war. So this could be challenging because it is having to connect to the internet. You shouldn't have to download anything, but it does have to ping the internet to make sure nothing has changed. And so this could, okay, there it finished. Okay, so you can deploy this portlet. I won't do this now, but you can say ant deploy, and then you can launch the 6.2 portal, and then you can add the task portlet. There's nothing to write home about. It's just your standard service builder portlet. So we won't cover that. But I just want to show you that the code is working for 6.2. We can compile it, and then by the end of maybe in an hour or less, we'll have this working on DXP. So let's begin. So the first thing we want to do to begin our upgrade is we want to create a DXP workspace. Now you could upgrade in place. You could leave it in a plugins SDK structure. You don't have to move to Workspace. But like I was saying, our recommendation is that if you're using Ant, our recommendation is to move to Gradle. We don't find any reason to stay. If you're using Maven, leave it in Maven, and you can upgrade in place. Our tool will support that. But the way our tool is built, you can get the most productivity if you're an Ant is to move to Workspace. Now the tool can actually do the conversion to Workspace for you. We're not going to do that because it hides a lot of good details I think you'll need to know. And so I'm actually going to want to do this from the command line, do it step by step to not have so much smoke and mirrors, and just actually show it to you from the command line and actually show off some of the command line tools that we've built that are IDE agnostic. So the first thing we want to do is we want to create a Liferay 7 workspace. Now when I say DXP, it's synonymous with Liferay 7 Community Edition. Nothing I'm doing here today is EE or subscription requires a subscription. I'm just using DXP because it's easier to say than the alternative. So to create our DXP workspace, we'll run this command, blade init DXP-workspace. What this creates is just the new scaffolding for Liferay Workspace. So Liferay Workspace is a set of Gradle plugins that supports Liferay development, and it's not just portlets. It's also OSGi modules. It's also front-end themes like Node.js themes. We have a lot of documentation that describes every part of this new scaffolding, every directory, what the themes folder does, what the configs folder does. So I won't be going into a lot of that detail. On the slides, I have links to copious amounts of documentation that covers this tool. So we'll be touching on some of those as it's relevant to our upgrade. I won't be covering everything. So the first thing you want to look at when you start your new workspace is the Gradle.properties file. And in here, it has all of the settings that you can use to configure the Workspace plugin. So the one we want to do today is the first thing you need to think about is what is the target Liferay I'm targeting? What version am I targeting? And by default, it points to Community Edition. So right here you can see we have a property called Liferay Workspace Bundle URL. So this points to the zip file of the portal bundle that you and your team is targeting. So by default, it points to the very latest Liferay CE portal release, 7.0.3 GA4. But for today, we're going to be using DXP. So if you are a Liferay customer, you need to use a different URL. This is the URL you use, and this is actually downloading Liferay DXP 7.0 SP4. So you just enable that URL, point it to this URL here. But now this is a protected download. So this actually has to come from our customer portal. So for you to do this in Workspace, you actually have to have a token file. So at the very beginning of this, top of this, you need to tell it, this is Gradle.properties. In the DXP that we created, blade init, in there is a Gradle.properties. We want to edit that file. We want to set two variables. First, set the token download, turn it to true. That means it's going to use a JSON Web Token to download that. And then the next thing we want to do is set the URL. You can simply uncomment it. It's just a matter of uncommenting those two settings, then saving it. So the first one is token download. Set that to true. And then the next one, bundle URL. Just uncomment the second one. Now, there's many other settings in here that are commented out. That's because that's the default. Okay? So your bundle Gradle.property doesn't look like this? It looks like just a small one. Okay. All right, we can fix that. So everyone go to this workshop files. And in the workshop file, there's a blade.jar. So it looks like the download this blade.jar, and we want to update. You can just use this blade.jar directly to create the workspace. So if your Gradle properties doesn't look like this, that must mean you have an older version, and that's okay. You can update to this version here, this one that was. If you've never installed Blade and you run the installer, I'm sorry, I should have told you, go ahead and run the installer if you have it, because it will install Blade as well. I didn't make that clear. If you have an older version of Blade and your Gradle.properties doesn't look like that, download this one here from the shared Google Drive. I have the link to the shared Google Drive in the here. So I didn't copy the Linux installer on there. But if you run the installer, it should have, your Gradle.properties should look like this. Then we want to set two properties. I'll go ahead and paste these into the, but I seem to be offline. Okay, so once you have blade.jar, you can do two things. If you have JPM installed, you can tell it to update your local blade to this jar file, like this. I want to paste these commands into the workshop upgrade. So if you don't have the blade jar, I'm going to give you a link here. And then if you have JPM installed, you can do this. If you've ever installed Blade before, or if you ever run the installer before, you have JPM, command line tool. If you don't, ignore it. you can simply do it like this. That's the same thing. JPM, when it installs Blade, it just creates a shell script wrapper that invokes that jar. So all you need is blade.jar, and then you can run java-jar blade init DXP workspace. And if you download that one from the internet, let me try it myself. Telling you to do something I have not tried. That's not. Okay, it's coming. Just want to verify that it's going to do what I said it could do. Okay. Okay. So definitely if you download the blade jar, it will be correct. Any directory. So when you say init, whatever parameter you put after that, it's going to create a directory in that file. So if you say my new workspace, it's just going to put it there wherever you run the command. And if you don't put anything, if you say blade init, it just does it in the current directory, but it assumes it's an empty directory. Okay. If you want to paste the error into the workshop upgrade. So once you have that installed, you want to edit. You want to edit these two files. Apologize if you have errors. Come to me afterwards. I can run through the workshop just by yourself. Make it up to you. Liferay's paid for you to be here until Saturday. So there's the two properties you need to set. Okay, I'm going to tentatively move on here so we can try to get through the other things. If it doesn't work, we'll go to the hack room. We'll make it work. Promise. Okay, so I've edited the Gradle Properties. Now we need to talk a little bit about how this is going to work. So we have this thing in here called configs. So the way Liferay Workspace works is that one of the things Workspace is going to do is it's going to take care of downloading the portal and applying your configuration that you need that's per environment. So you have some configuration you apply to the portal that you're going to using for your local development environment, so your local database connection. Maybe you turn on some developer settings, caching, you turn it off, some things like that. And then you have another set of settings you want to apply to production or to maybe your UAT server. And these are things like caching settings, clustering settings, different OSGi settings that apply only in those environments. So the way that it works in Workspace is in Gradle Properties, we have this environment. And by default, it's just your local environment. And so you're going to apply things that are in the local folder. So everything under configs local is going to be, when you set up your bundle, it's going to overlay that configs file, configs folder onto your portal bundle. So set up your portal ext, set up any Tomcat settings, any wars you want to be deployed. And so you can see that here. So if we look in configs local, we can see we only have one file in here. It's portal-ext.properties. But you can also, if we look at configs production, we have some sample OSGi settings like Elasticsearch configuration. So this is all documented on our website, so I won't go into this much more detail. But we've set up the Gradle Properties. Now, I also want to mention that when we run a init bundle, before we run a init bundle, we want to make sure that everything in configs local is what we expect, because everything in this folder is going to be applied, overlaid onto our bundle. So we already have our portal ext properties. I just copied this file. Actually, I haven't done it yet. You need to take whatever portal ext that you were doing in 6.2, you need to add it to this file. So let's do that together. So I'm going to take the file, let me back up. So here's my old portal, right? Here's my 6.0 portal. And in there I have my portal ext properties that I was using. So I have some user form stuff, some velocity configuration, DDM configuration. This is pretty standard stuff. Your file probably looks very similar. So what I want to do is I want to upgrade this, migrate this to DXP. Well, the way you do that is you just take your old portal properties file, portal ext properties, and we want to append that to what we have in Liferay Workspace. So I'm going to just append it to the end of our default portal ext properties. So now I have migrated my properties to DXP. So we can see that here. So it's got the default stuff here, and then it's got our additional stuff. Now I'm not doing any database configuration today. We're just using the in-memory database. So you can imagine the real world to be a little stickier. Another thing we need before we set up our bundle, before we have Workspace configure our bundle, is we need to move our DXP Activation Key into this directory. So like I said, when you have Workspace set up the bundle, it's going to take everything that's in configs local and overlay it on top of the Liferay bundle. So what we want to do is we want to put the activation key in the deploy folder. So in configs local, we're going to put a deploy folder, and in here we're going to copy, you want to copy that activation key that I sent out into the deploy folder. So whenever Workspace sets up our portal, the first time it boots the portal, it will see the key that's in the deploy folder. And that way we can actually test it today. So I will paste in here what I did. So I'm just running this command from the root of our root of our Git repo I sent to you guys. So that takes the old portal ext and it appends it to our new managed configuration there. So if you called yours DXP-workspace, then these commands, you can just copy and paste them. And the next thing I did is I copied, I'll do it again from here. So this one you'll have to modify a bit. What? Oh. So like that. Need to edit that a little bit. Okay, so now we have everything that we need. Now we're ready for Workspace to provision and set up our bundle. Yes, sorry, I didn't mention that. Good. It doesn't exist. So I will act like I knew what I was doing and I will edit history. The future is known, it's the past that's always changing. So something like that. Okay, so if you ran the installer, we have this other nifty little tool called GW. If you don't have it, you don't need it, but we've been using Gradle for several years now, and we get really tired of always having to do // Gradle W, whatever. And so we wrote a little app that's called GW. Actually, Dave Trong is in the room somewhere. He wrote it. And it's installed with the installer. So if you have it, use it. If you don't, then you'll just have to type the path to your Gradle wrapper. But you don't need Gradle installed. You just always use the wrapper. That's what's nice. But if you have GW, so the installer puts it here. But if you have GW, we can do that. So the command we want to run is GW init bundle. Now just for grins, we can show all the tasks that are available in the root of our Liferay workspace. And these are the specific tasks that we have for configuring your server. So creating a token that creates a Liferay.com download token, creating a disk bundle zip that's downloads the server, applies your config, builds all your modules, builds all your wars, all your themes, and then applies them to the portal and zips it up. And this is you're ready to send off to your Amazon team, the team that release engineering team that ups your server. All of these tasks are documented well on the website. You just search Liferay Workspace, it comes up. So what we're going to run is init bundle. If the create token is not skipped, that means you didn't unzip user home. Inside, let me explain that a little bit. So inside, I'll explain the token in just a minute. So that we have our token, so it says, okay, you've got the DXP. It's not actually having to download anything. You see it says up to date. That's because in the user home, the DXP is already in there for you. Then it runs a init bundle. That does what we've talked about before. Let me show you that token file. So this is a JSON Web Token. This is how you authenticate to get your DXP bundle. We have the create token task. The installer prompts you for creating this token. You can do it manually. There's documentation on the website on the customer portal for how do I create a download token if I don't have Gradle, if I don't have the installer. You can create this on your own. To which folder? Okay, can't connect the Wi-Fi? I apologize. I'm sorry. I don't know what to do. Maybe I couldn't connect and I bounced my multiple times. I apologize. People downstairs, too much Facebook. Yes. Client protocol exception. So if you see client protocol exception, that means that you either don't have the token or the URL in the property file is malformed or it can't connect to the internet. So it shouldn't download it, but it does have to connect to the internet to make sure that, oh, here's what you can do. Do this, guys and ladies. So -X in Gradle says skip that task. If you unzip the user home, you already have the bundle locally. You don't actually need to download it. So execute this task. Good question. It looks in the properties file. The properties file we set up and we have the bundle URL, that tells it where to get the bundle. That's a good question. So here's what you can do, guys. If you've set up Liferay Home and you don't want to hit the internet because your Wi-Fi is not cooperating, you can tell it to initialize the bundle but to skip the downloading part. It shouldn't need to download it. And if that doesn't work, well, no, that needs to work. Because if we switch to non-DXP, we switch to Community Edition, it's going to have to download that. That was not in the cache. So, and the Wi-Fi won't support a 400 meg download right now. So, okay, so did anybody get init bundle to work? Or am I alone? Okay, if it's downloaded in the Community Edition, you need to edit your Gradle.properties and set that URL. Oh, okay. So double check your Gradle.properties. Make sure that this second one is enabled, the one that points to DXP SP4. not the first one. If you don't have either one of them set, it'll pick Community Edition by default. If you see it download in Community Edition, need to double check this file here. If it does download Community Edition, you can continue the rest of the workshop with Community Edition. That's fine. But it likely will take a while to download. In the Gradle Properties. Oh, you mean after it's unzipped? After it's unzipped? So after it's unzipped, you can look inside of, that's EE, that's DXP. If you see patching tool, you're there. So I ran a knit bundle. So once you run a knit bundle, you're going to have a new directory called bundles. And in here will be DXP SP4. And like, tell me your name. Javier? I'm sorry. Adrian. Like he said, if you have patching tool, then you have DXP. So we at least have a few people that got it unzipped correctly. I'm going to go ahead and move on and just to help each other on the in the chat, so we can go ahead and move forward here. Okay, so the next thing, I'm going to actually go ahead and commit this. So if we ever wanted to, just for giggles, look and see. You don't have to do this. I'm just doing it in case we need to reset, in case we need to, something's not working. I have a little save point here. Okay, so we've got our new DXP workspace. We've got our new target platform. Now we're ready to start upgrading our code. The first thing we want to upgrade is our properties file, because we know our properties file is not going to be DXP compatible. So we have a new command called upgrade properties, blade upgrade properties, and what you do, you can see the help for this. Is you just tell it where your bundle file is, which in this case is just the bundles directory. So wherever your DXP is, or this works Community Edition as well. Everything I'm doing today works Community Edition. So you say upgrade props, you point it to the path where you find your server bundle, and then you point it to where the properties that you need to upgrade. So in our case, we already have, we actually want to point it to, the thing we want to upgrade is not in the bundles, it's actually in our, here. So that's where we're storing in our repository, we're storing our properties file. So what this is going to do, it's going to scan your properties, and it's going to go through and it's going to scan all the jars that are in DXP. And it's going to compare what you have in your properties to what is available in DXP. And the best it can tell, it's going to try to find where your properties went to. We have documentation that covers this, but that documentation can be a little bit hard to figure out, okay, what do I need to do? I see all possibilities, but I can't make out the forest for the trees, trees for the forest, whatever metaphor there. And this will actually show you what you need to do. So it's saying, what this tool is telling you at the top part, it's telling you which one of the properties that I used to set in Portal Ext Properties has now been moved to OSGi Configuration. And it says that these three keys, DDM, auto-generate key, velocity, restricted classes, velocity, restricted variables, these have all been moved to OSGi Configuration. These properties have been modularized. I need to update, because if not, those properties will do no good. Now this same warning will be shown to you when you boot the portal. So the first time you boot DXP and you have your properties file, it's going to tell you those properties no longer apply. But it's not very helpful. It doesn't tell you what you need to do. It just tells you in passing and then continues to boot. This tool will actually show you what you can do, some actionable items. So here it says, to set these keys, you need to set this configuration file, and set this property. So let's just do one of those together to show you what that might look like. We have documentation that covers all of the new configuration admin stuff. But basically what we need to do here, if we want to set this velocity engine restricted classes, we need to edit a file, and it should look like this class name. I'm not going to go into the details of how this works, but remember the configs folder is our configuration storage where we set up all of our bundle configuration that we want applied to every new bundle. So I want to add this setting there. So I go, first off, I need to make this folder. Yes, this one here. What part? Oh yeah, sorry, let me put that in the chat. Thank you for reminding. Here's the command you need to run. Now we're going to migrate one of these properties together, and then we'll move on. But let's migrate this one here, restricted classes. So I want to copy this, and where I want to put this is in a folder called OSGi Configs. There's good documentation that covers all this on the 7.0 dev network. But the way it works is inside your portal bundle, you need to have OSGi configs folder, and in there you can add these configuration files for OSGi. Now there's many settings. If you look at this, there's many settings that still can apply in portal ext.properties. Not everything has been modularized. Many settings are still available in the core. And so it's telling me that these 4 properties actually still exist. But these 4 don't exist. And so you need to check the documentation to see if there's a replacement. We have a doc, kind of a Rosetta Stone that says if this is the property you set in 6.2, here's what you need to set in DXP. So I'll try to send that out in a link later. Don't have it right now. But the one thing we do want to do, I want to just show you, is how would I set this. So I would create the OSGi configs file, folder, then I would edit this file like this. I actually want to. So I just add, this is the property we used to set. Basically, it's deleting all the restricted classes. By default, there's some restricted classes. This was just an example, portal ext I pulled. I don't even know where I pulled it from. But that particular developer was setting this, saying there are no restricted classes for velocity engine for the win. So that's how we set it. We create this velocity engine configuration file, and we set that property in there. So there we go, we've migrated it. Right now the tool is only a reporting tool. In a future version we'll actually have a way that it can just automatically fix these if you want it to. So you don't have to do the drudgery of moving it. Okay, so we've moved the configuration. Yeah, so let's go in and look at that file. It looks like this. Sorry. It's just the full qualified class name. And this actually matches a Java class that's in the portal source. So you could search for this, the portal source. You could see velocity engine configuration.java. It's just a little meta type configuration object. Oh, just that. So actually, if we go back to our original, it says that there were 2 properties from that need to be set. See, this points to the same thing, so we can set this one too. So now we've set those 2 properties. So if you look at our original portal ext properties, the one right here, you can see we had these 2 settings. Those are the 2 settings we just upgraded. restricted classes, restricted variables. Now we've moved those over to their OSGi configuration. Now we have that in our configurations folder, but that's not yet been applied to the portal, in the bundles folder. So if we look in the bundles folder, we don't have an OSGi. We do have an OSGi config, but it doesn't include the ones we just set. So we need to run init bundle again. And that will delete the bundle that's there, reapply the configuration which we've modified, and then unzip it again. And what this is important is that this makes your bundle configuration reproducible. You check these configurations in the source code, the bundles folder is not checked in, and then now anytime you want to run it for development, you want to run it for testing, you want to build it for production, that configuration is reproducible. Okay, so we've done that. Now it's time, I'm going to go ahead and save my changes. That was all. I didn't upgrade everything. I just wanted to show you the mechanics of upgrading one of them. Now we can keep going. Okay, so now it's time to actually upgrade the code. We've got the portal configured. Now we have DXP installed and available. Now we want to start upgrading the plugins SDK code. Is there anything I need to post to the chat to clear anything up? Oh, yes. So that will reapply that configuration. Now it's time to get to the good stuff. We're going to upgrade our plugins SDK. So back to the root of our repo. We have the old plugins SDK with the task portlet. We have our new DXP workspace. So we'll go into the new DXP workspace, and we want to copy the plugins SDK inside of the DXP workspace. You could move it, copy it. There's actually a way where if you run blade init from within the plugins SDK, we will actually just do this automatically by moving the plugins SDK as a child directory and then setting up the workspace scaffolding on top of it. I wanted to just show it manually so it's not so much magic. Good question. So the first time we run an init bundle, it downloads it from the internet as a vanilla. It extracts it. It takes everything that you have in configs and it overlays. And it might do a few other things. That's all I can think of right now. So we did that once, but we had not yet migrated our properties to OSGi configuration properties. So then I ran the upgrade props tool. I had to do that first because the upgrade props tool it needs a path to the DXP bundle. So I needed to run a init bundle so we had a DXP bundle available to feed it into this tool. This is before we upgraded the properties. So we ran this, we figured out, oh, there's a property we need to upgrade, or maybe several. And we did that. Now I need to reapply that to my DXP server. So that's why I reran an init bundle. It's not that critical because anytime you run the server in the future, you're on CI, you're running integration tests, init bundle is going to get recalled over and over. So I just wanted to show you the flow there. Okay, so now we're starting to work with the plugins SDK. So I'm going to just copy it to a new folder, a new child directory called plugins SDK. This is by convention. If you have a 6.2 plugins SDK, you can just copy it inside of DXP workspace and we're going to upgrade it, help you upgrade it. The name is configurable if you want to name it something else, but if you change it to something different than plugins SDK, you need to tell Workspace about it. There is a property here that says, what is the name of your plugins SDK? So that's the default, so you don't have to do anything if you name it that. If you name it something else, just tell us here. in this setting, and it will work. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, custom parameters that your own portlets are reading will still be available through the system. Oh, okay, so you found a bug. Yeah, you need to send me your properties file, and that's just a bug in the upgrade tool. So we'll fix that. Yeah. Yes. If you see stack traces, send it to me. We'll get it fixed. Okay, so now we have plugins SDK, and inside this plugins SDK is our one portlet we want to upgrade. So the first thing we do is we copy it in there, and then we run this Gradle command. What this is going to do is it's going to download. So we do this in stages. We don't move you all the way to a Gradle-based DXP development thing all in one step. We do it in stages. So the first stage is to take your existing ANT plugins SDK and just upgrade that to the latest 7.0. What I said at the beginning, we still support plugins SDK. If you still want to use ANT, you don't want to give up your existing ANT-based infrastructure, plugins SDK, you're comfortable with it, it works, you can continue to use it. On the website, on the customer portal, there is a 7.0 plugins SDK. It is deprecated. That means it's supported this version, but we don't guarantee that in the future it's going to be there. Now is a good time to migrate to Gradle. If you're using Maven, continue to use Maven. That's continued to be supported. We have new plugins, but you can still use Maven as you have in the past. But so this first step, what it's going to do, it's going to take your 6.2 scripts and it's going to upgrade them to DXP compatible ANT scripts. That's what this command is going to do. We need to do that first so we can bring the code into the IDE so then we can then begin doing the upgrade process. Now at the end of the day, we'll be completely moved off of it, but you don't have to. You can stop right there. Run this upgrade plugins SDK, and that's all you have to do. The code is buildable, deployable. Well, it's not buildable because we have broken APIs. But from a code architecture standpoint, that's all you have to do is upgrade your plugins SDK to, actually let me do this again. Let me show you what it does. Let me demystify some of this here. So I'm going to first copy the plugins SDK in here. This is my 6.2. I'm going to commit this. Now I'm going to run upgrade plugins SDK. Now let's look at what changed. You can see we've just gone through all of the plugins SDK and we've changed it to 7.0. New dependencies, new Ivy settings, new template settings. So you can still use, if your team has been built using plugins SDK from the last half decade, you can continue to do that. Just run this upgrades SDK, plugins SDK command, and you continue to develop your war style plugins, hooks, layouts, themes. It will all still work. So we've upgraded the plugins SDK, but the code still won't compile. If I try to compile the code now, it is not going to be happy because we've broken you. Okay. Right, this is expected. But we're not without hope here. We have new tooling to before. This is all we had before. In the past, if any of you guys have suffered upgrades, you unzip the new SDK, you build your code, and now the hunt begins. Hundreds of compile errors, and you have to just go through one by one. But we don't have to do that anymore. We can actually use the code upgrade tool. So let's save off these changes. Now this is where you need to get Studio. Take your Developer Studio and go ahead and launch it and come up to this screen right here. Any questions so far? So if you've already opened it up and started Studio, you can, as long as you don't have any projects imported already, you can simply say File, Import, Liferay Workspace. If you already have some projects, if you already have, well, hopefully you install the Developer Studio, because the stuff I'm showing today is only in the new 3.2 Milestone 1 version. Some of the stuff I'm showing today. So if you've already imported the workspace, you're fine. Or if you've imported a different workspace, you'll need to remove that and import this one. So just click on the link, Import Liferay Workspace, and then point out to our workspace that we are all working together with. So not the plugins SDK, but point to the parent, the workspace folder. This is going to bring it into Eclipse. So now we can begin the upgrade process. Code upgrade, that is. So far we have upgraded our properties configuration. We've upgraded our build infrastructure to be workspace, plugins SDK combination. Now it's time to start hammering on the code. So we import it. It should look like this. This is just basically the file structure that you have on disk. You should also see that a new Liferay server instance has been added to the server's view. That's just the Liferay server that's right here. Just automatically configured for you. So if you're already inside of Eclipse, you close the welcome screen, you can get to that wizard file import Liferay Workspace. And if you get this error, a Liferay Workspace project already exists in the Eclipse instance, then you need to create a new Eclipse instance, and you can do that with this file, launch, new workspace. Point to a new directory, then import. Okay, so now if you're at this point, we want to actually bring in that old legacy plugins SDK style project. You do that right here. You right click the project, the plugins SDK folder, and you go to Liferay, import Liferay projects. And you may say, wait a minute, I thought I just imported it. That's true. But there is kind of a delineation between a new style 7 project structure and the old 6.2. So we don't automatically pull in the 6.2 projects from within Workspace unless you tell it to. So you right click the plugins SDK. The idea behind that is this. You may have some plugins that you never intend on upgrading. Maybe you don't want to upgrade it right now. You don't want to have your workspace filled with compile errors that make it impossible to move forward with some of your code. You don't have to modularize, upgrade everything. You can do it piecemeal. So that's part of the story here, is that we only force you to, we only import things that you tell us to. So because you know I'm going to work on this. So you right click the plugins SDK subfolder. You say import Liferay SDK projects. Let me show you that again. You can also get to this wizard through the file import menu. You can get to the same spot. And then we normally in you guys' case, you're going to have multiple. You're going to have all your portlets, your themes, your hooks, your layouts. You can import all of them, one of them, whatever you want to do. So today we're going to just import the task portlet. And we can see we have 883 problems we have to fix. So this is when you contemplate sending in your resignation, becoming a teacher or a wind kite surfer. But we have tooling now that can help you. So now we want to, now one thing I would recommend when you get to this point is to disable the JSP validator inside of Eclipse, because it's going to gobble up whatever CPU you have available. So I would recommend, you don't have to, this is just optional, but I'm going to do it because it's going to just it's going to keep trying to validate your JSPs, which they're all broken right now. They're not ready. So I would just suspend the validators. Let me do this. I love multimedia. And I can upload that. Oops. I got a mouse here. Let me use it. I love the internet when it works. Let me also show you this. I've already imported it. This is the other wizard you want to use from before, just so you can see the name. Hope you guys packed a lunch. Okay, so now we're ready to get to it. We've got the project imported, 883 errors, so now let's launch the code upgrade tool. From the project menu, you should see Liferay code upgrade tool. If you don't see this, it's because you're in the Java perspective, some other perspective. Switch to the Liferay Workspace perspective. It should be the default if using Dev Studio, but if not, switch to that one. Run the code upgrade tool. Can I take a screenshot of this? Oh, yes. And then it starts over here in an unfriendly place. Let's move it, drag it to the center. Okay, so we've launched the code upgrade tool. First thing we want to do is we need to tell it what we're trying to upgrade. In this case, we're trying to upgrade the plugins SDK code. So you can point it to the root of your plugins SDK and it will just search through all the projects. You can upgrade them all, upgrade just one. However you decide to do it, you can start some, stop it, restart it, because many of you have multiple plugins you need to upgrade. You can also point this to your Maven directory and it will scan all your palms and show you the upgrades. I can show you that later. If anybody's interested in the Maven stuff, we can look at that. So all we want to do is we want to select our plugins SDK folder. This is the one that we copied into Workspace and then we upgraded it with the Gradle task. So now we want to just select the plugins SDK and it should look like this. It should just have a continue button. I don't know if these screenshots are helping anybody, but can prove that we weren't in here playing Mahjong. We were actually doing something. So I'll upload them. Okay, so now this is the meat and potatoes of the upgrade tool. What this is going to do is you want to use this little button over here. Forgive the hard to use UI. We're going to improve this. But you want to hit this button and it's going to start. It's going to ask you which projects do you want to find the breaking changes. So what this is going to do is we have a database of about 130 or 40 API changes, breaking changes, tag libs that changed, Java APIs that changed. We also have about 2,000 or so deprecated deleted methods, mainly service builder ones, but still many deleted methods that don't exist in 7.0 because we've deprecated them for at least one version. And it's going to scan. It's going to scan all of your JSPs, your Java files, XML files, property files, and it's going to look for things that you're doing that will be broken on DXP. These are things we broke, but we documented them. We have a database of those. We have this tool to help you through those. So you just browse through them. And every breaking change that we find, we have documentation that's embedded that shows you why the change was made, the LPS ticket, so you can track it. These are the things you'd have to figure out on your own in the past. Now we show you, yes, we changed it. Here's the reason, the rationale. Here's who's affected. Here's how you should update your code. And many of these thankfully, are simple search and replace. They're simple new imports. The class has now been changed. So for instance, in this JSP file, okay, so in the actual files themselves, we mark them in Eclipse. We tell them we renamed packages. Okay, so it shows you. So you edit this, you look at but you see most of these are actually just rename package problems. So what we also have is we have this little button over here that will actually automatically correct as many problems as we can. So many of them are just simple refactoring. This method was named this, now it's named this, or this class was named this, now it's named this. Let's just change your code. So if you hit this button, it's going to go through and it's going to go through these 116 problems and it's going to try to correct as many as it can automatically, and then it's going to rescan and recheck it again after it made all its changes. We don't do this automatically because maybe you don't want it to automatically fix. Maybe you don't want to do it yourself. Most likely you want to just have it automatically fix them where it can. We have maybe 20 or so auto fixers right now. We plan to add many more because as we learn more, as you guys send us more of your sample projects, we can learn more about how we can automatically upgrade these things for you. So you can see it went from 116 to 16. So 100 of them were just fixed automatically, but now we still have to finish these other ones. So what this is telling us is that the API has changed on the language util and also Unicode util, some other ones, where now it's no longer taking a page context parameter. It's taking, okay, so now I realize it's going to be really hard for y'all to keep up with this. So all I've done so far is I've run through the breaking changes, I've found them, and then I've auto-fixed them. So you should be to 16 problems as well. So if you didn't get the list, so if it didn't come up with anything, just hit this button. Did you see this page, Alan? Yeah. Yeah, the list is blank by default, so you need to punch the button on the right. Sorry for the experience is not as good as we want. We still need to review this and improve this. We have it on the plan for 3.2. So we're going to release 3.2 milestone 1 this month. We'll have everything you see today. By 3.2 final, which should be the November, December, we should have this UI significantly easier to use. Figure out how do I use it. We do have this documented, the workflow. So you click that, and then it should be scanning in the background. It should take several seconds, maybe up to a minute. It depends on how fast your processor is. And then you auto-fix. You could just auto-fix from the beginning. You don't have to do the scan. You could just auto-fix from the beginning and then scan it, and it should be down to this many. But now we actually have to do the dirty work and fix these. So I'm going to put this in the chat. Now you want to select auto fix, select find breaking changes, should have 16 left. 18? Wow. That's surprising. You have to show me, Brendan. The tool's getting better as we speak, finding more problems. Hey, likely it's just a little Linux error, off new lines, yada yada. Okay, so here's this change. I'm not going to go through these changes in detail. You can see them, they're listed here. I'm going to just tell you what to do. So click on this Edit Task JSP, double click the first one, select this, I'll post it in the chat. Okay, so that's the change. So there's many of these changes just require this. This is something that we can auto fix in the future. We don't have it yet. So I'm going to select the task portlet. I'm going to say search through the files, search for this, So search for this, replace. Whoops, don't select Workspace, select the other one. I could have canceled by now. Okay, and I'm going to replace it with this. Okay, so now it's made those changes. In the current version, we don't automatically detect that you've made these changes, so you have to tell the tool. It's not smart enough yet to know, oh, I've fixed all that. So just select everything, right-click, and say done. We've changed that. Here, same thing, same problem. Okay, so those were the 8 problems. If you noticed it, we found 8 places and we swapped it. Okay, so now we've done those 8. That's done. We still have 8 to go. So we click on the view task, we read the code, and we're like, oh, I see. The upshot is this no longer has the third parameter. Save it. So we want to remove third parameter from in what line is that? Line 200. Okay, we save that. Now we tell the tool we fix that. Now the next one is asset render API changes. The upshot is you need to replace it with this code, so you can copy this code. So now we'll go to task entry asset renderer.java. Select first breaking change. You want to replace the get summary with this. So I'm replacing this get summary. It no longer takes the locale. Instead, it takes this. Okay, so that's fixed now. Mark that as fixed. And this one is telling me, you can go through it all in the fine gory details. Basically, this is telling me that I need to add a new method called getJSPPath as opposed to render. In the old API, we expected you to use render. Now we expect you to use getJSPPath. And yeah, that should be it. Is that right? Oh no, it's not right. Let me just let it tell me what it wants. So I'll just say, what's my unimplemented methods? Because I didn't get the signature right. No, that's not right. So actually, change the super class from this to this. Sorry, these are details. Am I disconnected? Anybody see those messages? Reconnect here. Sorry, these details you have to suffer through. This is not important to you because it's only important to this particular app. But I'm just trying to show you in general kind of what it looked like. So there is a branch in your repo where all these changes are already made. You could just switch to that branch. So here, I can just give you this code. I'm going to just paste this whole new file. Here we go. Here is new file. Anybody see these messages? I'm going to just send you guys this file. So you can just copy it in here. Don't make all these changes. That's beside the point. The individual changes I'm making are not important. What's more important is that the tool, I don't know anything about this code. I'm just following what the tool told me to do, and it got it compiling, it got it working. I don't know anything about asset renderer factories. I'm not a Liferay certified developer, to my shame. Okay, so there's that one. Sorry I showed you all those details. I should have just made the change and then given you the new file. I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to do what the upgrade code tells me. It says do this. I'm going to try to go fast, but I'm going to be in the hack shop after this. We can go through this and all gory details. Okay, now I have satisfied this guy. I'm going to give you a copy of this file. Thank you, Internet. Okay. I fixed that one. Last file, 4 more changes. Okay, so here's something interesting. This change right here, it turns out we just changed the default. You likely don't care about this one. So any of the breaking changes that you have read about and you see, okay, this is the same problem, I'm seeing this problem over and over. For any of your portlets, you'll see this one. You likely don't care. You can ignore this problem. So you can right click and say ignore, or you can say ignore all problems of this type because you likely see the same thing over and over. So we're going to do this last option. We're going to ignore this problem. So now it will never show up again. So if I run this tool is built so that you can upgrade some of your code and then maybe come back the next day and upgrade the next piece. Or maybe you only upgrade those ones that you really need because maybe you don't even plan on upgrading some of them to DXP. So that's the idea, is that if you find this is a breaking change I never care about, mark it as ignored, and any subsequent time you run this tool, it's not even going to report those changes to you. But you can, if you want to go back and remember, you can see here in this preference page, we list all the problems that you have said to ignore if you want to restore that so you can see those problems again, in case you accidentally click, oh, I don't want to ignore those. So we ignore that. Now we have 3 changes left we need to make. I'm going to make these real quick. This is all, once again, I don't know these APIs. I'm just following what the tool told me to do. It just basically said remove these parameters. They're no longer used. Okay, that's it. Mark it done. And you can see that code is fixed. Now these code down here doesn't compile, and that's for a different reason. That's because Service Builder from 6.2 to 7.0, the interfaces have changed. So that's going to be fixed when we go and we rerun Service Builder. So I'm ignoring those for right now. You notice the upgrade tool doesn't even tell us about those files because it knows those are going to be fixed once we upgrade Service Builder to 7.0. You don't have to change your code. We just rerun Service Builder, and it regenerates DXP compatible Service Builder code. So I'm ignoring those problems, or the code upgrade tool just passes over it. You'll notice we have all kinds of problems in our services. But this code is all generated code. It's going to be rebuilt, so we ignore those. We don't care. The tool doesn't tell you about that because it knows that's going to be fixed later. Okay, so we're done. we have ignored 1, we've resolved 15. If you're not finished, you hit the, you just keep going. You can skip it and come back and do it later because maybe it's too much code to swallow in one day. You can't eat an elephant in one day, but we finished it, so we get the nice checkbox. Now we're on to upgrading the descriptors. So this is an optional step, but if you want to upgrade all of your deployment descriptors to 7.0, you can do that. In this one, you can double click the individual files and it will show you the changes that are going to be made. In some cases, in many cases, it just simply updates the DTD. In some cases, the DTD is actually changed in a non-backwards compatible way, like there's new elements or there's old elements that have been renamed. So the tool will migrate those for you. For instance, we don't have an example here, like layout templates is a perfect example. Layout templates, the format changed between 6.2 and DXP. So this tool will automatically upgrade your layout template, switch it over to the new, what do you call it? The new layout format. We don't have that in this portlet. So I simply just say upgrade, and that's going to go through and make all the changes to the files. Okay, so we've upgraded the files, upgraded the deployment descriptor files. Now it's time to build services. So this is going to show which one of these portlets are service builder portlets, and we just have the one task portlet, so we'll run it. This is going to go through your service builder code, and it's going to automatically migrate some of the descriptors, like some of the things that were not backwards compatible. It's going to migrate that for you. It's going to rerun service builder. So now you can see in our task portlet, those errors are gone. Oh, I didn't share with you the task portlet. Let me send you that file. Okay, so that error is gone. You notice all of the errors in our service code are now gone. It's regenerated. But we still have one error down here in this impl class. Let's see what this is. Okay. So this is simply because the exception classes that are generated by Service Builder, the packages have changed. So this can be fixed simply by running source organize inputs or imports. So Control-Shift-O, Command-Shift-O. That will fix that. So now we have clean compiling code. The JSPs still don't compile. This is because of we turned the validator off. Just ignore that. The upgrade tool has already migrated all these JSPs. So if we look, let me check my cheat sheet. I think this is everything. So here's all the code that it changed. You can see it upgraded properties files, upgraded Java files. Let's see where's some JSPs. Here's the JSP changes. So let's save this. Okay, so now let's see if we can build it. Okay, so we're upgraded. So I could deploy it now, and your task is done. We're finished. So that's the bare minimum you need to do. It's still Ant, it's still Plugins SDK, it's still War, it's just running inside of Workspace. But we could deploy it to DXP, and our job is done. We can move on to something else. However, we still have, how many? 30 minutes? We're going to see, let's see how far, we'll just push this a little further. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to Now this, if you have the repo, ladies and gentlemen, there is a branch in there called Workshop Upgraded. If you weren't able to follow along, git reset. If you got some git foo, git reset to this branch or check out that branch or whatever, and that will get you to where I am. So now the code has been fully upgraded. Now we're going to start modularizing the code so that we can better test it. Now, what I said at the beginning, we have a service builder based portlet, and this is as far as you have to go. But we are recommending for normal portlets like Spring MVC, JSF that don't use service builder, leave them alone. Don't move any further unless you have a strategic reason to do that. However, service builder portlets, there is a strategic win for moving those to modular structure, and that is splitting the API into its own module and splitting the implementation of that API into its own module. That way it can be easily shared between other projects. As you know, in 6.2, if you wanted to share a service layer between portlets, you had to copy files. You had to put them in the global Tomcat root or some other kind of similarly hacky class path, shadowy kind of thing. We're in a modular world. We're in a brave new world. Let's actually use the modularity to our benefit. Let's pull that API out as its own separate module. But let's leave everything else. Let's only change what we absolutely have to. So we're not going to touch our JSPs. We're not going to touch our portlets. Those are still going to be wars, still going to be built in the way you know and are familiar with. We're just going to pull the API and the service code out. And this is such a brain-dead maneuver. We built this into the tool to do it for you. Because if you followed the Liferay code structure, we know all your service builder generated code is in a folder called doc.root webimp service. We know that's where your API code is, so we can simply move that out to its own module. We know that as long as you didn't touch any of the generated files, we know that you should only be modifying the impl files for any of you that have taken developer training or know that. So we kind of know the way Service Builder works, so we can just automatically modularize these pieces. So now, you go to the root of your DXP workspace. So here's my directory. So what this is going to do, there's a convert command in Blade, and it says, show me the list of plugins that you can convert for me. So it's going to scan your plugins SDK, and it's going to find, we found one portlet that we can convert. So like layout templates, different things. We can convert those to a module. Not an OSGi module, but that just means a separate Gradle project that can be built with Gradle. It moves out of the Ant world and moves it into the Gradle, so we can take advantage of some new build architecture. So this is not going to, when you convert this, it's not going to change everything to OSGi. It's going to actually change nothing to OSGi. The only thing it's going to do is it's going to build, well, let's just run it, and then I'll explain. So you give it the name of the plugin that you want to convert. And then the second name, because we're going to go from one project to 3, it needs to know the root name for all those 3 projects. So we just call it task again. Now we want to go into Developer Studio. And we want to right-click the root project, DXP Workspace, and do Gradle refresh. Now, what does this need to do? The Gradle build model is telling Eclipse what projects is this developer using, what projects does he have. And when we moved that portlet from Ant over to Gradle, we split it into 3, and we put them in different folders. And Gradle, the Eclipse Developer Studio needs to know where those went, so you must refresh the Gradle project. You can do it from this menu. or you can do it with Command or Control F5. So you notice we no longer have the portlet code here. It's gone out of the plugins SDK. Now it lives in these 3 new projects. So Task API, that's all of our Service Builder generated API. Task Service, that's all that's our implementation. And then Task Portlet, this is just the same old Task Portlet code. Basically everything that was left over. It's in Gradle now, but it's still a war. This is not an OSGi module. These 2 are OSGi modules, but you don't really need to worry about that. These 2 are going to build jars. They're going to be valid OSGi bundles, but there's no OSGi in them. They're just packaged a little differently, built a little differently. But this is all done for you. And then everything else that's left over is here inside of Task Portlet. The only thing we've done is we've changed to the standard Maven project layout. Source main Java, source main web app. Gone is the doc root webinf Liferay isms. So this is standard Java layout. So in Liferay Workspace, this is something that's covered in the documentation that I'm skipping over. Everything that's under the modules folder, we assume is an OSGi module. It means it's going to be built as a jar and it's going to have the OSGi metadata in it so it can be installed into Liferay. Everything that's under the wars folder is going to be considered a plugins SDK style war. It means you're just building a war file. There's no OSGi in here, no declarative services. This is your normal Spring, MVC, JSF. This is the normal war like you've always built. The difference is it's built with Gradle now. So now it's easy for this project to depend on these upstream projects, API. And if you look in the build.gradle, we can see that the first thing we tell it is we need to depend on the task API. And what's nice is now if you have one service builder portlet, in the past you'd have a service builder portlet that had API in it, then you'd have other sibling portlets that would depend on that API. And you have to copy the jars around or whatever. Now in Gradle, any other downstream portlet projects that need to depend on that API, you just do it in a declarative way. You know, no jar copying, anything like that. So now any other portlet that wants to use the task API just declares it like this. And then you can see inside of Gradle, we have a nice project reference. There's no jar copying. So this is just a standard normal. This is what you're used to in all your normal projects that aren't Liferay projects. Liferay always did it the weird way, and now we're coming into the 20th century. So we have task API, task service. Now why does the task API, task service fail? Well, that's because our code before wasn't ready to be modularized. It had a few problems. So let's actually fix those. Well, the first off, let's actually go ahead and rerun Service Builder. Okay, let me back up. Before, to make this code modular, the portlet was treating this package, com Liferay task util, as an API. So there's actually code in these services that was coming out of this util. Because before, everything was all in one project. Now we've split it up. So our tool couldn't tell that this is the way it was working, so we're actually having to help it. We know that this util package is being used as API. So I'm going to refactor this and move this to the API bundle. Okay, so let's see, Blake convert task and say go into Dev Studio, right click DXP Workspace project and project, right click menu, Gradle, refresh, or Command Control F5. Then I need to move the com.liferay.task.util package from task portlet to task API. So everything that's in the task API, it doesn't have to be only service builder generated code. You're free to put other API constants, other things that's going to be shared between downstream projects. So that's certainly valid. Now we can go see by making that change, some of the errors went away here, but let's see what the other errors are. Okay, this one, service props, and this one is custom SQL. So what's going on with these two errors is this particular portlet was using something from another dependency, com, Liferay, util Java. In the old model, in the portal dependencies jar, this is something the upgrade tool should be doing for you. We are not doing it yet. Let me go to the Actually, no, you don't have to declare. Every Liferay plugin could use classes from util Java freely because it was always added to every portlet when you deployed. Now that we're in a modular structure, you don't get things for free. You have to declare in a declarative way, these are actually my dependencies. There's not just these magic runtime things available like in the past. And so here we're finding that this code from 6.2 was accessing classes that are no longer available unless you tell it that you need it. So we want to go to the build.gradle and we want to go to the dependencies. We need to add util Java. You say, how did I know? How would I know? Google search. This is not documented anywhere that I know of that, util Java, util taglib, util bridges, they need to be declared as dependencies now. In the past, you got them for free, so you may be using them. So if you're using classes and it's not compiling, likely it's from one of these util artifacts. So you can add it to your project. You can tell Gradle to refresh it. Control F5, Command F5. So now it compiles. So util Java. But in the OSGi world, it's not enough to just declare your dependencies. It has to be satisfied at runtime. The util Java packages are not, do not run in Liferay 7 as an available package in the system. So in OSGi speak, it's not a package you can import. It's not being exported by any bundle in the server. So that means that when you deploy this new service bundle, you have to bring with it your dependencies that you're going to need. Not all of them. Some of them are available. Some of them aren't. This is a frustrating aspect of OSGi development is we don't yet have a clear way to tell you guys this is available at runtime. These packages are not. We are going to get there. We have tools for doing this, for showing you, saying, yep, all these packages are available. You're fine to import these. Don't need to do anything else to your code. These packages are not available in the target runtime in Liferay OSGi framework. You deploy your code like this, these packages are not going to resolve. So you need to satisfy that. We have tooling for that. I have a GitHub repo called Deployment Validation Example, something like that. It shows you how to use some Gradle task to actually do that. So when you run Gradle build, it will check it before you even deploy to the server, saying this is not ever going to deploy. You don't have to try it to find out it doesn't work. Speaking of that, let's go ahead and start the server so we can maybe actually deploy this and see if this is going to work. I can already tell we're not going to get to the testing, but I really wanted to show you the testing. So after we get this deployed and show that it works, let's go build some tests for it. It's really cool. I'm so sorry I'm not going to have time. But let's get it deployed. Okay, so we've added our dependency. Now we need to, remember, I need to package that. One thing that we had that ORM class. Do you remember that one? Where was it? Yeah. Com Liferay util DAO ORM custom SQL. This is not going to import. I know it because I've tried it. It won't import. It says it's not available. Well, we've got it on our class path. We can compile it. Why is it not available in OSGi? Well, that's because it's not being exported by any bundle in the system, so you have to bring it with you. So the way you do that in OSGi is you edit the bnd.bnd file. This is the configuration file that says when I build my OSGi bundle, what's some instructions I want to give to the builder of that bundle. And B&D is what's doing it. And so we need to give B&D some additional help. We need to say, B&D, I need you to include this package because I'm going to use a class from here. I want you to bundle that with my, so we've moved task. We need to edit build.gradle with this dependency. And now we need to edit bnd.bnd inside of task service and add this bnd instruction. If it's not clear why I need to add this, come to me after. We can have a nice chat. We have documentation to explain this instruction, why you need it, why I didn't need it before, why I do need it now. There's a very good explanation. It has to do with the price you pay for modularity. Okay, so we've told it to import this. So now our package should be ready to go. One last thing I want to do is I want to make sure we already ran build service when we had it in the plugins SDK. Now that I'm inside of the Gradle workspace, without you knowing it, we have upgraded the service builder version. In other words, now that you're running inside of Gradle Liferay workspace, you're using a more recent version of service builder. That's the way it's configured. If I look at this task service project, now if I want to look at the task I have available, one of them is build service. Why is this task available? It's because we detected that you had a service.xml. So if we see a service.xml in your project, we automatically add the service builder Gradle plugin for you. And this adds the build service. So anytime you change service.xml, anytime you change any of your implementations, and you need to regenerate service, but in the past you would say ant build service or Maven, Liferay Maven plugin service, build services, or build service, whatever. Now let's go ahead and run this task because we want to make sure we want to regenerate the code that has all the newest and DXP compatible code. This code that it is right now will work because we have really preserved service builder backwards compatibility, but it's always good to just rerun it so you're getting the latest and greatest code. So we're going to rerun this. Also, another reason to do it. If service builder detects that you are in a plugins SDK style war, a war style project, it generates one set of code. If it detects that you're inside of a Liferay module, an OSGi module, which is what this task service is, it generates another set of code. It's a little bit different. And that's because some things that you did, let's see. What's the problem here? Oh. Okay, so the service are fine. There's actually some code generated in the API that's wrong. And it's not service builder generated code. It has to do with code that was added by the author of the task portlet. Basically, there's some things that he was calling, whoever wrote this was doing it as a war that are no longer, that aren't possible in a module. I don't think this part is documented. It's a gap that we're going to document. In other words, what are some things that you could do in service builder in a war that you can't or shouldn't do in a module? One of these is this invoke method is no longer valid. So here's what you need to do. From build, so, whoops, oh my. From, we're almost there, Tiago. From task service run, plenty. We can I was going to say we could rebuild Liferay from scratch. No, we can't in 10 minutes. So rerun Gradle build service, or you can just double click it from the task view here. Either way, or from the command line. So from the task service project, run the build service, and then refresh. In Eclipse, refresh. Workspace. So you can just right click this and refresh. When you do that, you're going to see these errors. This is because this is doing code that's not valid in a module. So you could ignore this. You could delete it. It's simple enough to just delete the override. And then here, same thing. Now that code is just inert. But this one's a little bit. This message listener was written by the original author of the task portlet. You might have code very similar. In the past, in a service builder portlet for when you're running inside of a war, there were occasions where you needed to clear the service. At least that's what I'm reading here. I don't really fully understand this. I didn't talk to Mr. Ryan to see why this code was written. Your eyes are going to hurt after staring at that all day. But what's the good news is that, see this clear service method? If you've ever had to use it, I don't even know. Tiago might be able to tell you. He's much more knowledgeable about these things. But all I know is this method is not available on the service builder if you run inside of a module. You don't need it. And so we can actually simply delete this whole package. Because if you rerun the code, if you rebuild services inside of a module, it doesn't even generate that API. So we need to remove the @overrides annotations on two classes, and then in task entry service clp.java. Wait, no. Sorry, what did I delete? Oh yeah. Delete this package completely. Okay, so you may be saying, that was a lot. That was a lot of things that you just needed to know. Well, most likely, your code may not have those things in it. Most of your service builder portlets will just automatically move over. You won't be using those clear service. If you're using clear service, if you're using something that doesn't exist, then you will just need to delete it. Our breaking changes migrator might actually detect that. So you might, once you have run build service, you might want to rerun the breaking changes tool on this and have it recheck. It might detect that and tell you that. I should have tried that. But okay, so now that we have it built, we have it all working, or at least compiling, let's deploy it. See what happens. So I could go to the command line, I could run Gradle deploy, GW deploy, or I could simply from within. So I've just booted DXP here. So let's actually go to the browser. Sign in to DXP. Make sure everything is working. Oh yeah. Okay, so there we are. Now let's deploy our fully upgraded and modularized. Let's see if it deploys. There goes API. There goes the war. And service. Oh, service didn't deploy. Let's see why. Okay, so it's telling me that the service bundle did not deploy because it couldn't import this package. Com Liferay task service permission. We would have seen this if we deployed it to the command line. We could have seen go shell will tell me this. So if I go in here and I open the GoGo shell, so this, remember that tool I was telling you about that would tell you this ahead of time? Once we apply that to Dev Studio, we wouldn't have had to deploy to know that this won't. If you look at the GitHub repo and you use the tools that I have there, we wouldn't have had to deploy to figure out this wasn't going to work. So I say, why didn't task service? Okay, because it couldn't find this package. Well, this package exists somewhere. There it is, com service permission. I'm depending on it. Why can I not see it at runtime? That's because all modules in OSGi have a import-export boundary. They all have a clearly delineated protocol. So in my BND file, this is the one that configures what I'm exporting to the rest of the world. You can see that I don't export the permissions thing, nor do I export that util. That was another one we added. So, okay, we can fix that. We can just go here, this editor, and add permissions and add util. And I hit save, and it's going to rebuild the bundle and republish it into Liferay. And now, you can see that as soon as this restarted, it was able to try to start the service. And it threw some SQL exceptions. Not exactly sure, but maybe it's okay. We can always hope. So now let's take a look. Okay, everything's active. Everything's good to go. Everything's resolving. So we have our two modules, Task API, Task Service, and then we have our WAR, just a standard WAR. There's not an OSGi bundle. It gets converted when you deploy it. Automatically gets converted to a WAB. There's documentation, covers it all in the gory detail. But now we should be able to deploy our upgraded portlet. All right. Now I got to compile some JSPs here. So we're not going to get to the testing, but I'm going to go right to the hack room and show you the testing. So please, anyone that wants to see the testing, I was really hoping we could get there. Maybe we can write one test. Okay, here we are. Here's the task portlet. I didn't show you in the portal, but it looks much worse because it's the 6.2 styling. And actually here you can see there's a little bit of, we need to hire a front-end engineer and give us some better CSS because the CSS didn't quite. So all I did was looked at the backend code, Java, JSP, XML. I did not touch JavaScript CSS. There are other upgrade tools that will upgrade your CSS. That's why I don't have the right margins here, is because the CSS code, we didn't run that through any of the upgrading. So we do have upgrade tools for that. They're not integrated into Dev Studio, but you can run them from command line. They're all based on Node, various Node tasks, gulp tasks. So you can run all your front-end code through those tools and it will upgrade for you. So I need to hire front-end engineer. That's add a task. Tell me upgrade this to get it where it looks a little better. DXP, I need to apply lexicon, all of that stuff. So the upgrade tool doesn't help you do all that. Sorry, guys. But here we are. And you can see the little button is not quite aligned. So yeah, looks better in 6.2, but here we are. Now we've done something in a couple of hours. So I'm going to go ahead and shut the server down. I want to show you, I'm going to remove these. And we're out of time, correct, Tiago? Okay. 2 minutes. So the next step that I would have done if we'd had time, and we can continue in the hack room, that's where I'm going to go, is we're going to apply some integration tests and some functional tests. Now that we have it modularized, it's much easier to apply tests to this. Actually, you can see we have the in the task service. We already have the scaffolding for it. We have all of the Gradle code that's ready to build integration tests, is ready to build functional tests. And that's the payoff. Modularizing, that's not much better than what we had before, but now we can much easier test our code inside of Workspace. So meet me in the hack room, find me later, I can show you that. Maybe I can record this same thing online and show you the testing piece. Wow, that really is time to go. Drop the mic, wow, okay. Did you plan that? Okay. So anyway, thank you guys for sitting through this. Apologize for the kind of false start with the files. We'll do better next time. Thanks so much. Good luck upgrading your projects. Send them to me if it didn't work, if it hung up, what it didn't find. We'll improve our upgrade tool together. So maybe the next time you upgrade it, it will be even better. So thanks. Question? Yes. So I will. I pointed out documentation all along the way. In the PDF that I'm going to give Tiago, it has some of the links, not all of them. I will get them all in there. So by the time, yes, and I can put them in the GitHub repo that you have. I'll put in the README. So in the slides, I have all of everything we did today, all the commands, so you can go through the exercise if you're really interested. Anyway, thanks guys. Good luck. Enjoy the rest of the conference.